Play several years back. I also gave one of these. Actually, I'd only been here several months. It's back in the fall of 2008. I gave one of these, How I Became a Scientist seminars when Michael Houston used to organize that. But today's is going to be a little bit different. It's not so autobiographical as that previous one I gave, although here and there it'll be kind of a little bit about me. Instead, what I'm going to do is hopefully give you guys some practical advice on becoming a scientist, even just sort of getting through grad school. And this will kind of become a top 20 list. And as I was listening to Clay's presentation, it occurred to me that he's actually done some of this. And look where he is now, so it works. All right. But again, a little bit of autobiography. And just a little bit about my background. So when I was 4 years old, my parents moved us to Bryan, Texas, College Station, Texas. Given that, it's just imperative, it was obligatory that I go to A&M, and I did. So that's where I got my undergraduate degree. But of course, you can only take so much time there in Aggie land, so I moved on from there pretty quickly after I was done. To get a master's degree, and I'd always kind of like with Clay. I like the American West. I like the landscapes out there, just all the variety of life and wildlife, and even the history out there. And I had taken trips to Big Bend, to Yellowstone, to parts of Arizona, the Grand Canyon, Colorado, and so I wanted to go west. And so I went to New Mexico State. There was someone there that I wanted to work with. Back then, my interests were much more within evolutionary biology than ecology. So there's a young faculty member out there that, like I said, that I wanted to work with. That's a nice college town, so that was going to be the place for me. And I went there and kind of overstayed longer than I anticipated, only because it took me a little while to find out what the next step was going to be, but I wanted to stay out west. And I knew I wanted to get a PhD, so from there I went to the University of Nevada, again, becoming more and more ecological. And they had a project out there looking for an RA to work on heteromyid rodents, kangaroo rats, and in particular their ecological interactions with a plant called Indian ricegrass. And so I went out there to be an RA on that project. And interactions between heteromyid rodents and plants sort of became part of my dissertation as well. But eventually you finish up, you have to keep making progress. And although I would have loved to have stayed out west somewhere, I had to go to the Midwest. So I wound up at Miami University. Again, this is a postdoc position, and it was advertised. And it was about species diversity and analyzing diversity patterns. And what attracted me to the job the most is that the way it was advertised is the PI, the guy overseeing it, just wanted someone to come in there and do good ecological work with a statistical foundation, and that my interests were developing in that area. And so he didn't make many demands on what exactly I was supposed to do. He just said, come in here, be productive, and do something that relates to diversity. So I was there for 2 years, and it was very productive. We got a lot of papers published out of that collaboration. So from there, I went to Colorado State University. Not really as a postdoc. I guess I had sort of advanced a little bit beyond doing postdocs, although this wasn't a faculty position either. It's just a temporary 2-year, what they call research associate position, working with the North American Breeding Bird Survey that some might know about. And that was crucial in my career development because ever since then I've been working with that database. This is a huge database of bird distribution and abundance collected from thousands of survey routes throughout the entire United States. From there, I went to the University of Northern Colorado for a little while. That was the first time where I really started to get a lot of teaching experience as well. Eventually saw the job advertised here, applied for it, interviewed and all that, and like I said, wound up here in 2008. So this leads into the top 20 list. And practical is in quotes because at your stage of career development right now, a lot of this, or some of these tidbits of advice may not be applicable. You may not be able to put them into action quite yet. Although if you stick with it, as in having a career as a scientist, I think some of this, you'll see the value later on. Okay, so get a variety of experiences. I don't know if you should join the Navy. Get some experiences. Actually, Clay's a great example. As he was talking about how he moved on from one place to the next doing different things. That was exactly this. Get a variety of experiences. Work with biologists of different kinds, even if that means volunteering on various research projects. You're at a stage of your career now where you can do that. When you get to be like us, you just don't go around freely volunteering your time to hardly anything. So, you have to pick carefully and take advantage of your opportunities now to do stuff like that. Attend other universities. Even if you're obviously a student somewhere, a lot of different programs or a lot of different universities have like these different summer programs where students can come and visit, participate in different projects. And that may even be in a very informal way where, you just know of someone else at another university, maybe your advisor knows about that person, and, you can take some time off, even if it's just a few weeks, to go out to that person's lab and learn something new, or just to meet other people and get, a broader exposure. This is just, it's very important, to do that. And like I said, you're at a stage now where you have, for the most part, and your advisors might say otherwise, but you do have the time. Make the time. So, if you're ecology like I am, and like Clay, then, what that kind of means is work in different ecosystems. Clay went out west, and even into the Pacific Northwest. That's a place where I haven't been. I've visited, but I've never worked or lived in the Pacific Northwest anywhere. Different biomes, taxa. Cell molecular, I don't know much about that, but I suspect that, it might mean working on different types of cell systems and these molecular pathways. All that can be important. Educate yourself outside the classroom. Again, Clay did that. And, at some point I'll cease referencing Clay over and over. But what he was talking about leads in really well with these points of advice I'm going to try to give. This seems bad, when you're in academics and you're, intellectual, you're not supposed to say or admit that you watch TV. I watch a hell of a lot of TV. Because by 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, I'm shot. I can't do much else. Plus my 11-year-old daughter has the remote, so we're going to watch TV. But truly, choose carefully. Not the reality shows. Those don't do you any good. But, the Animal Planet, Nat Geo, what are some others? Discovery Channel, even A&E, History Channel. And that's what I mean by educate yourself and do so broadly. History, current affairs, all that. Read newspapers. Well, no one really reads a newspaper anymore, but the online news sites, different news channels. Wikipedia also. I know I have several friends that are in the business, other that are PhD scientists, and they always frown at me when I say that. I go to Wikipedia all the time. I go there to get basic factual information that I might need to put together for a lecture. I've never cited Wikipedia in a paper, but I'll even browse it. It is our modern day equivalent of an encyclopedia, so I'll just, at times sort of, to wind down, like I'm talking about in the evenings, I'll just kind of browse around on Wikipedia and go from one topic to the next. And a lot of times it's like history that I'm just sort of scanning about. For subjects that you're not familiar with, grab a textbook. That's the general basic intro, so take advantage of that. You guys should be reading all types of magazines, that even those are for the lay audience, like National Geographic. I've been subscribing to and reading National Geographic since I was about 8 years old. That's how much, that's how important it is to me. Another good one, although I no longer get it, I think it's close at one point to going out of business, it's called Natural History. But definitely very much focused to people that have an eco-evo type of interest. And then, of course, Audubon, if you're bird-oriented. And even, in our very own state here, Texas Parks and Wildlife, their magazine, can have incredible, natural history type articles and information and knowledge in certain issues. At this point, you might even have 2 or 3 favorite journals, that, scientific journals that you like to look at. So related to all that, read. You just, you can't do enough reading at this point. They talk about law school involving a lot of reading. Well, graduate school should as well. So one of my very favorite ones, although admittedly I don't go and read it monthly, I just read it kind of haphazardly now, Trends in Ecology and Evolution. So I was at the University of Nevada working on my PhD from 94 to 2000, and I think it came out, it got started like early 90s or so, and I used to go once a month, I'd go into the library and get the hard copy and just see what's going on in ecology and evolution. As you might suspect, it covers a broad range of topics. The articles are very user-friendly, they're not overlaid with a lot of data, a lot of them are kind of review articles. Why read all this stuff other than get yourself really broadly educated, which is important? Well, to get ideas. I got several ideas for papers, one of them which actually paid off simply by reading an article in Tree. And I'll get back to that in a little while. Learn and use statistics. Science is quantitative. It's unavoidable that it's like that. But also just thinking quantitatively, you need to pick up that skill. You need to develop that skill. And we all vary in that. I tend to think of that as being one of my strengths, but it may not be for you, but you can always work at it and try to improve upon it. So just a little bit of more on that. Obviously, to some extent you're going to learn statistics from your coursework, but you've probably also have heard it said that you don't really learn a statistical technique until you start to apply it. Do a particular analysis, apply it to your own data. There's a lot of truth to that, so that's one way of really learning it. But also just critiquing statistics in published papers and in proposals, thesis proposals that you guys might share with each other. In different classes you're reading papers, and the seminar classes and the primary literature you're reading, and you should read not only those papers for the content and the logic and how people are testing their ideas, but the exact statistics and the analysis that they're using as well. A lot of subpar statistical analyses get published, or at least, let me be a little bit more tactful and say, there's a lot that's published out there that the statistical analysis could have been better. Okay? And you'd be surprised. A lot of you probably are already starting to develop the capacity to identify flaws like that. Well, what's scientific research all about? It's about pattern recognition, right? And in particular, testing for whether the pattern is non-random. So to do that, you have to have this quantitative thinking ability, or at least it helps. It helps a lot, right? So you're able to link a pattern to a process. And consider this, all processes are quantitative in some sense. In other words, what do I mean exactly by quantitative thinking? Inevitably, in collecting data, you're working with different variables. So you might want to know, okay, what happens to y, to the y variable with some change in x? It's one thing to have the data and to see literally for the data that you collect, but what about data that you don't collect but that could exist? What would happen to y in that context with some change in x? Try to think about that. Even more so, here's the key. That when you can do this, you have mastered quantitative thinking. You can develop an equation to describe whatever process that you're interested in. Whatever process is at the heart of your research. If there's some equation out there that describes it, or even someone else has developed an equation, you can kind of modify it to customize it to what you're doing. You're there. all pattern is the outcome of process, right? When we talk about pattern, the reason we're really interested in that is because presumably it relates back to process. So one of the questions that you can always be asking yourself is, how does your process qualitatively, or how does the process that you're interested in quantitatively change whatever pattern you're dealing with? And this could even take the form of, and I've done this a lot, where in Excel I'll make up data, simulate data. That's, if this were happening, then what kind of pattern would we expect from the process if it were working like that? Okay, so a few little practical, a little bit of practical advice on statistics, so some do's and don'ts. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I see this when, sometimes when graduate students are giving presentations. Don't over-report decimal places, right? I mean, so really you only need to go one place beyond whatever precision you have in your measurement. And who cares what these numbers stand for, but report a standard deviation of, say, 7.82 and not that really long number, even though the R code may give you that long number of whatever computer program you're dealing with. Typically, test statistics, and if you look carefully in the published literature, 2 or 3 decimal places is good enough for these widely used common test statistics. Be careful about the p-value. There's no reason to have excess digits in it. That, I would argue, is better than that. But I see that. Not only do I see it, obviously I don't want to, pick on graduate students too much, because mostly that's what's in the audience. But I also see this in papers that I get as an editor for a journal. People with PhDs just making mistakes like that. And it's annoying. Really. Any p-value less than this, allow for 4 zeros and then a 1. Just report it. If it's less than that, report it as that. Not that. That doesn't impress anybody. They have all those zeros in front of that 3 and that 2. I mean, if verbally, what are you going to say in your manuscript or your paper that it's super significant? I've never heard anybody refer to a p-value as super significant. So, chop it off. I mean, that's good enough. And usually, editors will, and reviewers catch these issues. P equals 0, P equals 1. I even see that occasionally. What's wrong with that? P equals 0, P equals 1. Why not say it? And particularly P equals 0, that must be super significant. 0? It can't happen. That's the problem. It's a probability. Just like any probability. It has to range. The range between 0 and 1. So it never truly equals 0 or 1. So don't write that. And if your friends write that, correct them. Okay. Okay. R has gotten way too popular, really. I mean, I'm starting to use it more and more. But be careful. It's easy enough to go shopping around online and grab some R code and then come back and, run it. And if it gives an answer without an error message, wow, you're done for the day, But you're not. You better make sure it's doing what you think it's doing and, give an output that you can trust. I think you're probably a little bit safer when you're able to write your own R code for doing something. Then obviously you understand a little bit better. And I know in the classes that Butch Reckerly teaches, he teaches you guys a lot how to write R code. So you're safe with that. It's mostly the online code that you find. Okay, so moving on, learn to write well, or at least better. Again, this is something that, you're sort of, you can improve, you can practice, you can improve, but there is sort of a little bit of an innate ability to use language, in a written form. But practice. Don't be afraid to get started. Don't have writer's block. Just get words on a computer screen. Even if it's stream of consciousness type stuff, and I do that all the time. I don't even use outlines. If I'm starting a manuscript, I'll have these bulleted points. A single bulleted point may only be 8 or 9 words. Another one might be an entire paragraph. And at some point, you know, I'll start to put them together. The whole process, though, is just to get started, and then things will go from there. The hallmark of scientific writing is to write clearly and concisely, and typically, you know, in what we call MRAD format. And the reason I'm using sort of this jargon, technical languages. When I was at the University of Northern Colorado, I taught a course in scientific writing, and just to back up a second, that's intro, methods, results, and discussion. You know, the typical scientific research paper, no matter what discipline. So in reading those students' papers, scientific writing course, they came up with a whole list of abbreviations, UFW, use fewer words. I mean, that's a common mistake, run-on sentence, which all of you know about, and even using, you know, the typical subject, verb, object form, which is the way we speak. That can be important, but it's oftentimes, but particularly with run-on sentences, that gets lost. So some examples. It has been shown that most streams in this region have excess nitrogen. So if I were reading that, I would say UFW. Get rid of that front part. Right? Most streams in this region have excess nitrogen. You never have to use this phrase in scientific writing. You never should. I mean, it's excess words that you just do not need. Okay, I'm not even going to read this one because there are a lot of problems. And not only that, it took me a while to even come up with this one. I couldn't find any old papers to get the real gems, but it took me a while to even come up with that one. And of course, some of you in your head right now, you're thinking about ways it can be simplified. That could be simplified a lot, just to that. Frogs lay eggs, right? Good enough. Well, you are missing a lot of content and information if you take it this far. But the point is, this is messed up in probably all these. You know, we would divide that into two sentences. We'd get back to the subject, verb, object, form for our basic structure for this sentence. A lot of you already know this, right? Use active voice in scientific writing, particularly when you're writing the methods. You and your colleagues did something, so write it like that. We measured, that's the active voice. Measurements were made, taken. Taken where, you know? Someone took them away? That's the passive voice. Don't use that. So, related to that, we took samples is bad. Just say we sampled. That's a strong verb. We sampled, we measured. Those are strong verbs. We made measurements. You don't need to ever use make, take, and any of their derivatives in scientific writing. In fact, it's just too indirect. It's just too verbose. And then finally, be your own editor. First of all, edit each other's papers, writing, but be your own editor. And you know, the best way to do that, take some time, because you have to write something, even if it's only a page or two, put it aside, you know, let it sit somewhere for a week or two without you looking at it, and then you go back and reread it, and you will catch a lot of mistakes. You will be your own best editor. You can't do that immediately because the writing, the ideas, the thoughts you want to convey are too fresh in your head. If you just write it out and then think, okay, then the next hour I can go back and edit it. You can't do that as effectively. Talk with your peers, particularly if they're buying. I mean, why not, right? I don't know who these people are. I found them online somewhere. But you can see they're happy. They're probably grad students, but probably in history, you know, they're a little bit too happy. They're not as stressed out as you guys should be. But, you know, that's the whole point of being in grad school, is to make the most of it and enjoy it. And Clay might agree with this, maybe Paul as well, that, I mean, I hate to say it, but it is, as far as the fun level, it's a bit downhill after you're done with grad school. It really is. Because again, you do have excess time right now. And a little bit of money. A little bit. But what I mean by this is, you know, discuss your research projects with each other. You know, if you have a project that's been going on for a while and none of your other fellow grad students know hardly anything about it, you need to get some new friends. I mean, communicate with each other and talk about ideas and get their input, you know, criticize and encourage. even on broad topics, politics. What better time of year than right now to be talking about politics, right? Your career ambitions, the courses you've had. And by all means, do never neglect the opportunity to talk bad about us in any setting. We're not perfect. In fact, we want to say stuff that you guys will challenge, I think. So, you know, talk among yourselves about, you know, what maybe what we do well, but even more importantly, what we do poorly, you know, how we could be better, where you disagree with us on certain issues related to research, your own research or whatever. University of Nevada, we do this all the time. Be inquisitive, right? Curious, natural curiosity. That's what science is all about. Wonder about the world. Easy enough to say, you know, things you see in nature or in the lab if you're not really wildlife or ecology oriented. Ideas that others may have written about and that, you know, you read about. You know, again, this is something you can do among your friends. And Clay talked about this some, you know, how, particularly as an ecologist, you know, wildlife oriented or whatever, you got to get outside and see what the organisms are doing out there in nature, even what the terrain is like, what the habitat is like, what the ecosystem is like, to then come up with ideas. And this is part of the reason that you should be inquisitive, is to try to come up with those good research ideas. I'm not going to show these two YouTube videos. One of them is, some of you may have seen them. This first one recently got posted. I think it's that cow in sort of this snowy landscape. With its head, it's pushing this big bale of hay forward. Has anybody seen that, or just me? So it's, well, you have. So it's pushing. I have more time on my hands than Clay. So it's pushing this huge bale of hay for who knows why. And then this one is the little dog playing with the, the dog is in its backyard, and it's playing with the river otter that keeps coming in and out of this like gated fence. So, you know, very interesting that a domesticated animal is engaging in this play behavior with a wild animal. And, you know, the cow sort of seems like it's playing as well. No one's going to write a dissertation on cows pushing along hay bales. But the point is, play behavior, adaptive significance of it, why animals do that, that's an area of active research in behavioral ecology. So you can imagine that, you know, just seeing things like that happen, for behavioral ecologists, that can get ideas going in their head. Don't reinvent the wheel. Okay, so this paper has my name on it, and I came close to doing this, and actually quite recently, and I got called out a little bit. This is a paper that I published in 2013 on some, as you say, it says there, probabilistic model, and this statistical technique for examining how species co-occur with one another, how they're able to coexist. You know, fairly fundamental question in ecology. So right there I say, this is the abstract, and I say for all the world, the aim was to develop a new probabilistic model. New. Now I only use the word new once, but this guy at a university in Mexico, actually the top best university down there, which is, in his own right, he's a very good ecologist. Last fall he wrote a critique basically pointing out that, he was correct about it, that the model is exactly, or it's identical to what's called Fisher's exact test. And he actually had an even greater point and sort of a disagreement with me on other issues. That was the bulk of his paper. And I've since have written one that kind of replies back to him. But he is correct in that, and that it's essentially the same test. But my out is that Fisher's exact test never, historically, it's been around for decades. It's never really been applied to this topic, this task of testing for co-occurrence. Do side projects. Well, what the hell is a side project? Clay mentioned side projects. He did one or two or a few. What are side projects? Is anybody doing a side project? Are you doing a side project right now? Well, what are they? I mean, maybe not master's level, one thing at a time, but definitely PhD students, side project, just, you know, research that's not your own dissertation research, but something you want to do, and most importantly, what else about it? Why the hell are you doing it in the first place? Huh?
It's fun.
Well, it's fun. Well, that's the best answer to everything, but more in a more practical sense. I mean, why do you do a side project and then you write it up and then yeah, exactly, and build. That's what you want to do. Again, particularly if you're a PhD student, but even if you're a master's student, it can't help. And a lot of times, side projects are collaborative, so you're working with your fellow graduate students, and it's fun. Reason to drink beer every now and then. Have a thick skin, take criticism. No matter what your career is, you just have to develop that. It's a cruel world out there. But typically what's happening is your advisor, different colleagues, even reviewers and editors that you don't know, they're complete strangers to you. When they're giving you criticism in a professional setting, it's meant to be constructive, right? It may not be tactfully communicated, and shame on them if that's the case, but it is meant to be constructive, so take it that way. Take the criticism. So for students, here you go. I mean, if your advisor, or even a colleague, a fellow grad student, returns you a paper, your manuscript, your proposal, it's all marked up and written and heavily commented on, that's a good sign. It means he or she cares. And when he or she cares, it means they want you to succeed and to do better. They want to help you improve. Okay, so if you're going to take it, you're allowed to fight back against it, right? I mean, that is permissible. And so by that I mean, do it, but be civil, tactful, and correct. In other words, if you're responding to some comments maybe you got from a reviewer, or even from your advisor, or even from a fellow graduate student, and you think they're wrong and you're correct, well, the second time around, when you are now for the second time going on record as saying, no, it's like this, you need to be even more sure the second time around. In other words, don't fight too much with, after you submit a manuscript, you get the reviews back, don't fight too much with the reviewers and the editors. There are ways in which you can write very effective reply cover letters, where you don't necessarily take all their suggestions, but you do sort of, in a very nuanced way, tell them that they are right, thank them for their opinion, but you're not going to act on it. Okay, and that's all right, but there's an art to doing that. And there's no book written about it. You just have to kind of learn it and learn it from maybe your advisor or other people. Be enthusiastic or fake it, So what do I mean by that? So say a little bit about me. I had a hell of a time getting a job. So I went on a lot of interviews between 2002 and 2008. And before I finally got the offer here, along with at the same time another offer from a university in Texas. But I'd get feedback, and it's always sort of like, well, you seem disinterested, not serious enough about the job. Well, I just don't have that personality where I show up and start doing backflips in a song and dance routine. That's not me. So I admit I probably came off like that, just a little bit too laid back. But this is important in teaching as well, right? Just verbally communicating your research to any audience. You just have to show some enthusiasm for it. Own your project. Be it dissertation or thesis. So what might I mean by that? Just to add a little bit to it, a lot of you know who Jim Ott is, and he talks about this, I think, a lot with his students and others, that they should own their project. What is that? Does anybody know what I might mean by that? Say, own your project. Well, yeah, but even more so, what do we mean? What might we mean by that? You're doing some thesis project, and what does it mean for you to need to own it?
Take pride in it?
Yeah, take pride in it, and you do it. Do it day after day. Don't need micromanaging. You do it, you take pride in it, you try to improve it yourself. You try to make it better, as though you're not just a research monkey there carrying out 1, 2, and 3 to get some result. So that's essentially what it means. And I'll say that, for the most part, I think students do that. You don't have to be told. Don't procrastinate. Do the little things immediately, right? When Dr. Hahn sends me an email saying, oh, you need to do this, and it's sort of maybe just involves a little memo to another campus or another office here on campus, I just get it done immediately. Get that out of the way. Big task, writing that manuscript or analyzing that data set, it's going to take some more time, but put it on a list, and then look at that list constantly, several times a day. And then when you can knock one out, take pride, reward yourself. Go get an ice cream cone, whatever. And related to that, give yourself deadlines, right? Don't leave that up to your advisor to give you deadlines. Do it yourself. I mean, you got to keep the ball rolling, keep making progress, so that's important. Now, what that might mean is you have this daily list of tasks that you want to get done. And also keep in mind that a deadline is not always about the end product, the end point, the completion. You could have a deadline just to get started. So do that as well. And when that deadline comes and you have gotten started, you're on your way. You've made progress, even though the project, whatever the task is, may not be complete. If it helps, tell other people about your deadlines. Particularly if it's some type of collaboration of any sort and they're waiting on you, tell them. Science is all about, we depend on each other in doing science. So you just have to constantly communicate. If you're not going to make a deadline, then, let your collaborator, whoever is waiting on you, let them know. Pester people, right? So on the other end, if you're waiting on someone, you haven't heard, if you need a response from anybody, keep pestering, constantly to just get the answer back. It got lost in my email, I forgot about it. Those are legitimate excuses. That happens. That's why it's all the more reason that you just have to constantly keep sending the emails. There's nothing wrong with that. So, if you're going to pester people, then what should you do? If you're going to be one of the persons doing the pestering, yeah, right. What better example, right? You need to allow yourself to be pestered. Don't get pissed off about it. Keep getting email after email. That's all part of communicating and keeping up with colleagues and making progress and getting things done. But do follow through on your commitments. So much of science is collaboration. And again, that means we depend upon each other. If that's the case, when you commit to doing something, doing your part, you really have to do it. But life is life. It's okay to disappoint people. Everybody in here is disappointed someone at some point, even in a professional setting. That just happens. What do you do about it? You just move on. We're particularly in a professional setting, we all get used to this. Rejection. Once you start reviewing papers, you have to write things that are negative, not mean, but negative about a paper that you don't think should get published. That comes as a disappointment to the person receiving that bad news. And I can tell you from being an editor, it's hard to deliver that message to someone that, when that first author is someone young and new, just a postdoc or maybe a grad student, it's hard to tell them that. But they'll get used to it, hopefully. Right? They have to develop that thick skin. Go to seminar, our weekly seminar. It's for you guys. Occasionally, every now and then, we let you all know that, when we see attendance kind of slacking off. Caitlin or myself even will send an email saying, come, because it's really for you. And then, as Clay was talking about, go to meetings, conference meetings, different professional societies. Go to those meetings. You're going to learn new subject matter, even how other people do science. And if you think about it, when you've sat through a real effective presentation on some scientific topic, some research project, it's not only because it was interesting and they were giving you the content, but in so doing, they were also kind of telling you how they do science. Just sort of day by day and even in the broader scheme of things. You can go to meetings, get research ideas, meet new people. Okay, so I'm winding down this slide and one more, and so you kind of back to me a little bit. So if to list things that have helped me, just my own natural inclination, and by that I mean liking to be outdoors, kind of like, again, what Clay was talking about, just being outside in a variety of different landscapes, hiking, doing whatever. I've always been like that. As a small child, I was catching whatever I could, whatever organism I could, and making it a pet. Education, just you have to be well educated. I don't know what more to say, right? Interactions with key people along the way. I can honestly say that my master's advisor, PhD advisor, postdoc advisor, I went and traded them in for other advisors. I'm perfectly fine and in fact very pleased with the advising I got all along the way. And of course, that started with my parents. And so, that's key as well. And I don't think I've had a bad professional relationship with anyone yet. Hopefully it won't happen. Success early on, anything in life, right? You have to have success early on. For me, it came in my master's thesis. I was able to get it published relatively easily in a really good journal. And so from there, it built confidence, and that was important. And I carry this on even into other parts of life. So for my daughter, not so much anymore, but when she was a few years younger, I let her win at board games almost inevitably. My wife didn't like it all the time, but I just thought that she needed to have that sense of having that success early on. People that, it's even important in athletics, and people that never really become good at any type of sport, it's probably because they never got that early success. So I played two years of Little League baseball, and I could field and throw and do all that fine, but I just could not hit the damn thing. No matter what, I just couldn't hit. So, my career ended quickly. So along with that comes rejection, right? Because you're not always going to have success. Hope for 50-50, right? Isn't that good enough? When it's all said and done, you like 50-50. I think it is. It's not like set your standards low, but just realize that rejection is part of the game. Be creative. Again, that's important in science. Hopefully I've stressed that always keep developing your quantitative abilities, statistical abilities, whatever. I love to write, and that's paid off as well. I never have any trouble getting started. Clay mentioned this as well. Have fun. In the end, you better want to wake up and get to work and put in a good day's work at whatever your job is. And then finally, hopefully I kind of shown you how, contrary to what people might think, being a scientist is very much a social enterprise. We're constantly, particularly in an academic setting, constantly interacting with people day-to-day basis in all types of ways. It's certainly intellectual. It can be challenging, to come up with that idea, figure out how to test it, literally to get the data, analyze the data. That's all challenging. A lot of multitasking. Again, that's part of just the day-to-day job of, just trying to keep up with your list of chores and tasks that you have to do. Just inevitably means you have to multitask. And then finally, the most important thing is that it is rewarding. It is fun. You don't need much more reward than that. All right, thank you for listening.